Thank you to all the presenters who will be presenting to us. We have EDC, DPR, Economic Development Corporation, Department of Parks and Recreation, the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, and New York City Department of City Planning. Great. So also thank you for the breakfast. We've had Super Nice, which is located on 117th Street. And at lunch, we will have lunch provided by Sapuara. I'm not sure the address. Do you know the address off the top of your head? Also on 117th Street. Got a lot of treasures on 117th Street. Great. And thank you to the residents for being here. We'll make some announcements on the specifics of the event, but this event is co-sponsored by Manhattan Community Board 11 and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Culture of Health Leaders program. And this program is focused on health in the built environment, health equity, and environmental justice. So after I introduce Angel, I'll give you a little update on about health equity, and then we'll go on to our presentations, which I think will give you a lot more information on that. Just as an agenda, we're going to start now with an introduction to the community board, and then we'll move into our presentations, which will be from 10:30 until 12 p.m. At 12 p.m., we will have lunch instead of breakfast in this side room where you grabbed your pastries. You will take your lunch and carry it out the entrance that you came in on 104th Street, and then we'll go around the building and to the front terrace. On the front terrace, we will have an interactive lunch, so we can eat our lunch. We'll have tables set up by our community partners where you can talk to them about what their organizations do, how to get involved. There's a swag bag we will be giving you all. And then also part of lunch is a visioning activity, which we will be collecting and listening to our East Harlem residents about what they would like to see in the neighborhood as we move forward together. After the lunch ends at 1 p.m., and at that point, all residents are free to leave. And we will have from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. back in this room a workshop with community partners in the Community Board 11. So let's see. Part of this is, as you know, we're giving away to every East Harlem resident. You must live in the district, which is why we've been collecting your addresses, and you must fill out a statement of district needs survey. It's very important that your email address is correct because the email address, the gift cards will be sent to your email address. So we will send out the gift cards, and it might take up to 24 hours to show up in your email address. So if you do not have an email address, let me know, and we will figure something out. But please, my name is Jessica. If you have any questions, just find me. And I will take this time to introduce our district manager, Angel Muscane of the Manhattan Community Board 11.
Good morning, everyone. Am I being heard through the mic? Good. So, again, thank you to all of you for attending our first annual Earth Day conference. It's very exciting. Jessica and the Environment, Open Space, and Parks team have done an excellent job, and we're very excited for them and for this to be a successful event and an event that will be repeated for years to come. We're very proud of that group. So as Jessica said, I'm Angel Muscane. I'm the district manager for Community Board 11. And my job today is to talk about community boards, which is what I do all the time, because nobody ever knows what a community board is. So this message is for the non-government partners present today. So community boards are agencies of the city of New York. They're comprised of volunteer members of the community. So it's residents, business owners, other stakeholders that care about their community and want to participate in conversations towards the end of bettering their communities, right? On a number of different topics, from housing to economic development to environmental issues to safety, transportation, and so on. And it's a way for residents, of the community, stakeholders in the community, to have a voice that hopefully influences policy decisions that address the needs of those communities, right? So our government partners are very focused on doing their work, but they, work from the agency level down, right, on the instructions of their bosses in the administration or in their agency, which makes sense. But the whole conceit of community boards is that, we're offering a finer grained viewpoint, ground level viewpoint, to inform policy decisions, and in hopes that our government partners will take that into consideration, and often they do. Not always though, but we'll talk about that another time. So Jessica was mentioning encouraging folks to fill out our Statement of District Needs survey. One of the responsibilities that community boards have, there's three main ones. We have a voice in the land use process. We're supposed to be responsive. We are responsive to constituent needs in the district, but also we have a role in the municipal budget process. And the way that we inform that process is via that survey. We need to hear from our neighbors in the community, what they're seeing on the ground level, on their block, in their building, in their park, as to what the needs are. And via that survey and through conversations at the community board, in our meetings, we hear from the public and we're informed by them, and then that information we use to prepare our annual Statement of Needs report that we submit to the city and to our government partners in hopes that they, are reading it and responsive to it. So community boards, like I said before, are made up of, volunteers from the community. Each community board has 50 members. That body, organizes itself into a number of committees on, focus on different topic areas. All of our meetings are open to the public. So if you're a resident of the district, if you're, some other kind of stakeholder in the district, know that these are public meetings that are your opportunity to come and inform the community board about what your concerns are, right? At every single meeting, always. So we certainly have agendas that we try to adhere mostly to, but there's always an opportunity to hear from the public, and actually we seek it very aggressively. We want to know what your needs are, right, so that we can be, thusly informed. Should I be wrapping up? No? Yes? Okay. So the community board has a monthly meeting, once a month, third Tuesday of every month, where we ratify positions of our committees, but our committees also meet once a month, and we have 11 committees at last count. So the first couple of weeks of the month, we're quite busy with community meetings. All of those, again, I want to hammer this point home to our, local residents, are open to the public. You get to speak. So whether we are in person or on a Zoom, you have an opportunity to weigh in. Aside from that, you can always reach the community board office. We're located on 117th Street and Park Avenue, 1664 Park Avenue. Our number is 212-831-8929. And you can also reach us by email at mn11@cb11m.org. We're there Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And we're always, well, not we, but I am always reading email. So I will get to your message at some point. I'll wrap it up with that, unless anybody has any questions, but I don't think that's part of the program. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the conference.
All right, so as Angel mentioned, community boards are made up of 50 people, and we are all volunteers, so unfortunately I don't have any slides for you today. But one of the things we've been talking about in the Environment, Open Space, and Parks Committee is about health equity and environmental justice in the built environment. As I am an architect, so all those words are very technical, so I just wanted to do a little bit of a breakdown of why we're here today. So as we know from the pandemic and from before the pandemic, the parks and open spaces, the streetscapes in East Harlem especially, are very important. We spend a lot of time outside with each other, and it's important that those spaces be healthy, safe, and inviting. As an architect, I've studied how your zip code determines your life expectancy. So depending on where you live and the environment of the neighborhood that you live in determines how long you will live as a human. So that's important to understand that things that we discuss today do have an impact on overall health and opportunity and the experience of our East Harlem residents in the neighborhood, which is why we're here. Some of the issues that we've been focusing on in the Environment, Open Space, and Parks Committee, lack of trees. Other neighborhoods have very beautiful tree-lined streets, right? That lowers the heat of the neighborhood. It increases the resiliency of the neighborhood, and it collects water when there's rainstorms, protects us from the heat, and is overall, good for your mental health. So we need more trees in our neighborhood. We need more green space where we can find it, more places to soak up the water when you have rain events. We have a concentration of industrial uses. That affects asthma in our residents. So as we have multiple sanitation garages in our neighborhood, that's something that we've continued to talk about due to the health impacts that it would have on our neighborhood. All the sanitation equipment and trucks and just the traffic that goes through and getting to these garages. And that's part of our East Harlem Points of Agreement from 2017, which we will talk about more at the workshop at 1. Heat, as we all know, impacts the elderly and children more than most adults, so it's important that we reduce heat in our neighborhoods. We have a lot of vacant lots with that build up trash. They have rodent problems and things, so these sort of sanitation and trash issues play into our environment and our health. And then lastly, resiliency. We have presentations that will touch on most, if not all, of these issues, but in essence, we have the East River Esplanade on the east side, which is a coastal area, right? But then we have our inland area, which is a low-lying area, which is typical of lower-income neighborhoods of color across America. And that causes water to become trapped in our neighborhood and not being able to be released. So we have all of these things that are overlapping, intersecting, and impacting us on a daily basis. So here we are, want to talk about it and bring information to the public from our city agencies and see what we can do moving forward as a group. So health equity is achieved when every person has the opportunity to attain his or her full health potential, and no one is disadvantaged from achieving this potential because of a social position or other socially determined circumstances. Equity is not equality. That's a big statement. So when we get the same amount of funding as another district, that may be equal, but is it equitable? We have more needs in some cases, in some areas. Does that mean we need more funding? These are questions that we have to answer. Environmental justice is a social movement to address the unfair exposure of poor and marginalized communities to harms associated with resource extraction, hazardous waste, and other land uses. So our health equity goals for East Harlem and in the Environment, Open Space, and Parks Committee is to bring together community members and our organizations, which we've done today, to have conversations together, get your input, and talk about next steps and how we move forward together. Joining forces for a shared vision. What is our community? What do we want it to look like? What's important to us? And how does that play into future proposals and things that impact our neighborhood? And then lastly, fighting for equitable funding and the completion of the points of agreement from our East Harlem rezoning. So that's why we're here today. Let me know if you have any questions. We will get started with our first presentation from the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice on Environmental Justice for All Plan. Welcome, Milka.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here today. So my name is Milka Rodriguez. I'm currently a policy advisor at the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, formerly known as the Mayor's Office of Climate and Sustainability. So today we're here to discuss the EJ for All report. It's a study that will be used to develop the EJ plan, the Environmental Justice Plan for the city agencies of New York City. Today I will give an overview of the EJ for All program, more detail on the report and our progress thus far, as well as just an overview of the programs and projects that affect East Harlem. And this is my colleague, Jordan Salinger, who will be contributing to this presentation this morning. Before we talk about environmental justice, we need to have an understanding of what is, first, we need to understand environmental injustice. For far too long, communities that are of color and communities where the majority of residents are of low income have been usually those with the least amount of power and contribution to the environmental degradation. And they have experienced a disproportionate share of the poor environmental outcomes. So what exactly is environmental justice then? Environmental justice works to address this by ensuring access and inclusion for people at every level of the planning and decision-making process, and equal protection from environmental and health hazards. This also includes implementing policies designed to close the gap on these environmental health disparities. The city actually went and outlined environmental justice areas throughout the 5 boroughs. These areas are defined by law as census tracts that are either high poverty communities or communities where the majority of the residents are people of color. As you can see from this map, East Harlem actually lies within an environmental justice area. If you want to get a better sense of the other environmental justice areas in the city, feel free to check out nyc.gov/EJ study. So local laws 60 and 64 of 2017 codified environmental justice into city decision-making. It became law after 10 years of advocacy from grassroots environmental justice organizations and the leadership of elected officials such as Charles and Inez Barron and Costa Constantinides. Our mission is to bake environmental justice considerations into the fabric of city decision-making. Our roadmap to identify and address environmental justice concerns in New York City consists of first assembling an environmental justice team, assessing the environmental justice situation in New York City, and then addressing it through a plan, the citywide EJ plan. So in the assemble stage, the city went and created the Environmental Justice Advisory Board, which is comprised of advocates, academics, and public health experts. They were appointed by the mayor, and their charge is to advise the city on the implementation of environmental justice laws, bring this work to New Yorkers, and ensure that it is grounded in the experiences of the people that live in these communities. Review and advise on the EJ report, portal, and plan, and also engage with environmental justice communities and the public. We also convened a working group of city agencies, and their charge is to conduct research and develop the environmental justice report, assemble relevant data to publish the environmental justice portal, and also develop the citywide EJ plan. Currently, we are in the assess stage of the process. We have already identified the environmental justice areas and outlined, we will be looking to outline the concerns through the report. We're actually finalizing, or not finalizing, but we finalized the recruitment process for a contractor, and we will be in contract negotiations. This contractor has to not only write the report, but also publish a web portal with EJ maps, data, and programs. After that, they will go ahead and develop a city EJ plan to incorporate EJ considerations into city decision-making and identify city initiatives for promoting EJ. So the Environmental Justice for All report will study the city's environmental justice areas, provide a comprehensive view of the present state of environmental justice, lay the foundation for the environmental justice plan, and also fulfill 10 legal minimum requirements to ensure that major climate, environmental, and health concerns are identified and that existing city programs are examined. So these 10 legal minimum requirements will include assessing environmental outcomes. This relates to the analysis of environmental benefits and burdens, as well as the identification of environmental justice areas. It will review city programs and policies, mandating the identification of city programs and processes that advance or hinder environmental justice, and engage communities. So this aims to advance public engagement and ensure that environmental justice communities have a voice in the decision-making process. If you want to learn more about the Environmental Justice Report, I encourage you to visit nyc.gov/EJ-study. So this is kind of an update on some of the progresses thus far. We completed the EJ for All scope of work back in December of 2021, and it outlines the environmental justice concerns that the report will study, and also our approach to analyzing them. It consists primarily of 3 main tasks. The first one is analysis of the environmental outcomes and climate vulnerabilities, analysis of the city's contribution to environmental justice, and lastly, review of the public engagement by city agencies and participation in environmental decision-making. And as I stated earlier, we have already selected the consultant to complete the report and the web portal, and this was actually done this month. So let's talk a little bit about how these plans are going to be affecting East Harlem. There are several ways in which this office is engaging East Harlem through resiliency projects that are being implemented, the NYC Accelerator Building Energy Efficiency Program, and the NYC Accelerator Internship Program. One main environmental justice stakeholder in Northern Manhattan is We Act for Environmental Justice, a nonprofit that has been dedicated to championing EJ in this community for several decades. They're actually the chair of the Environmental Justice Advisory Board, specifically Executive Director Peggy Shepard. Last year, we conducted a public comment period, and we were able to receive feedback from residents of East Harlem. Some of the results of that feedback were comments on the main environmental justice issues, such as waste, noise pollution, and environmental health in buildings. There was also some advice that was given on ways that the city could be improving the situation, or ways in which the city is contributing to this issue, such as lack of maintenance of waste and parks, disinvestment from elected officials and government agencies, and there was also some suggestions on how to improve meaningful involvement through increased oversight and community involvement, as well as the city needs to be implementing programs equitably. So speaking to Jessica's point earlier, there's a huge difference between equity and equality. So I'm going to hand this off to my colleague, Jordan Salinger, that will be discussing the resiliency projects in East Harlem.
Hi, everyone. As you mentioned, Jordan Salinger, Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice. I work on the Waterfronts team and on climate adaptation projects across Manhattan. Many of you are familiar with this here and the work that we all did together between 2017 and 2019 on the vision plan for a resilient East Harlem. It was a study that was a partnership of the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice and the Parks Department to look at, and Jessica did a great job earlier talking about our different hazards, right? It is not just the large coastal storms that we saw during Sandy. This community very much dodged a bullet in terms of the worst impacts. But that said, if the storm had arrived slightly later, slightly earlier, could have looked a little bit different. But it's not just coastal events like that. It's also heavy rain events like Ida that we all experienced very recently, and heat events. And so this, I think we're very proud of the assessment that we did looking at kind of multi-hazards across this community. And I think most importantly, it wasn't just a study that gathers dust somewhere, but it was immediately something that we were able to integrate into planning processes that you'll see through presentations that EDC and Parks will be giving later today, specifically the Harlem River Greenway and some of the upcoming projects. Another thing I wanted to highlight here, and once again we'll be going into a little bit more detail later, but a specific project that came out of that study was the cloudburst effort, and that is relating to that Ida event, the kind of extreme rain that comes very quickly. So one of the projects is at Clinton Houses. This is something that we were able to get a FEMA grant for during that study process. And back in the prior administration, we were able to get full funding for completion of innovative pilot project at Clinton Houses looking at limiting the worst impacts of extreme rain. And so here's one example. This is in Queens, in South Jamaica Houses, a rendering, a little bit hard to see here, but it is essentially a depressed basketball court where when there's kind of extreme rain, the water is able to gather and you're able to pump it out afterwards, reducing kind of negative impacts on kind of buildings nearby. That's just one thing that they're looking at. They're also looking at permeable pavement, kind of detention, kind of holding water in other ways, and supplementing the existing drainage network. So we're just very excited about this project and the funding for it. We think it's potentially a model for NYCHA developments across the city, and quite frankly, development, kind of schools, a lot of other implications here. So just wanted to highlight these two items, and both Parks and the Economic Development Corporation will be going into more detail on the projects in a moment. Thanks, everyone.
So just a quick overview of the NYC Accelerator Building Energy Efficiency Program. It's a free technical assistance program that helps buildings meet Local Law 97 emission limits. They have no-cost building operator trainings and supports green workforce development, as well as identifies applicable financial incentives and also financing through our program, the NYC Accelerator PACE. A cornerstone of this program is inclusion. The program is inclusive of all privately owned, new and existing buildings that are over 5,000 square feet across the 5 boroughs. And this program conducts specialized outreach to Northern Manhattan and Central Brooklyn to address environmental justice needs. This effort will help deliver much needed additional assistance to these communities to ensure that the residents of these neighborhoods have equal access to healthy buildings and spaces. Through building upgrades, the program will address issues of environmental justice and help to improve the health and the quality of life of the communities that are the most impacted by climate change. I also wanted to do the spotlight on the NYC Accelerator internship program. It's specifically for students in their undergraduate and master's degree program enrolled in the City University of New York. Any CUNY student that you know that has an interest in climate and building energy efficiency, who would like to expand their knowledge and be connected to an internship. Usually it is a minimum of 15-week internship, and the students are paid $15 for undergraduates, and I think starting at $18 for master's degree students. So we train a wide variety of students in business, marketing, policy, and communication, as well as more technical fields like architecture and engineering, who would like to gain entry into the field of climate, sustainability, and environmental justice. So this concludes our presentation. If you have any questions about any of these programs or initiatives that are impacting and affecting East Harlem or just environmental justice in general, feel free to participate. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much to the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice. Next, we have New York City Department of City Planning to talk about the comprehensive waterfront plan. Welcome, Brendan.
Yep. Good morning, everyone. I'm Brendan Pillar. I'm the Deputy Director of the Waterfront Open Space Planning Team at the Department of City Planning. I'd like to start by thanking Community Board 11 for inviting me to your inaugural Earth Day event, and to thank all of you for attending today and for your interest in the comprehensive waterfront plan. The city released the plan in December of 2021, following 2 years of speaking with and listening to New Yorkers about the past, present, and future of New York City's waterfront. Just like the first two comprehensive waterfront plans, this plan established a long-term collective vision for New York City's waterfront and waterways. The vision for this plan is for all New Yorkers to live, learn, work, and play in safe, healthy, resilient, and sustainable environments, even as the climate changes. New York City's 3 comprehensive waterfront plans have provided pathways for advancing waterfront priorities for the past 30 years. The '92 comprehensive waterfront plan was created following huge shifts away from the industrial use of the waterfront and the subsequent neglect of the shoreline. This plan outlined how New York City could reclaim its waterfront and led to the creation of waterfront public access requirements and zoning. This means that most new development on the waterfront must construct and maintain public open space on site as a condition of development. The 2011 Comprehensive Waterfront Plan, or Vision 2020, proposed additional ways for New Yorkers to explore and enjoy New York City's waterfront. It also advanced the city's ferry network, water quality, and climate resiliency planning efforts. The third Comprehensive Waterfront Plan builds on the vibrancy of today's waterfront, while also putting forth new strategies to help make New York City a more equitable, more resilient, and healthier waterfront for all New Yorkers. We've accomplished a lot over the past 30 years, but more work remains. The plan is organized by 6 topic areas. The topic areas are climate resiliency and adaptation, waterfront public access, economic opportunity, water quality and natural resources, ferries, and governance. Each topic area outlines actions that can be taken over the next 10 years to address a range of challenges and opportunities. Some of these challenges and opportunities stretch well beyond the city's waterfront, but the waterfront plan can still play a role in addressing them. I'll go through these topic areas one by one and share a sampling of what the plan says about each. The first topic area is climate resiliency and adaptation. Let me take a moment to define these key terms. Resiliency is our ability to bounce forward following a climate event, whether that's heavy rain, a coastal storm, or a heat wave. Adaptation refers to the programs, policies, and processes that minimize our risk to climate events. So by taking steps to adapt, we can increase our resiliency. Okay, so now let's dive into the topic area. The vision for our climate resiliency and adaptation work will be driven by the climate justice principle that all New Yorkers should live, learn, work, and play in safe, healthy, resilient, and sustainable environments, even as the climate changes. The goals for climate resiliency and adaptation focus on expanding climate risk awareness and action, using climate risk information in public policies and investments, supporting the housing needs of waterfront residents, managing risks from flooding with coastal protection, and promoting resilient design in buildings and infrastructure. Here are a few examples of how we'll do that. The city is working with the Army Corps of Engineers to advance the New York, New Jersey Harbor and Tributaries Coastal Storm Risk Management Study, which is looking at coastal protection for our entire region. The study restarted in November after a 20-month pause during which the previous federal administration declined to provide funding for this important work.
Since initiating the study, the Army Corps has identified 5 potential approaches based on elevation analyses, feasibility studies, and environmental assessments. These scenarios include a massive surge barrier between New Jersey and the Rockaway Peninsula, as well as smaller scale projects that the city has long advocated for. The Army Corps is expected to identify and conduct public outreach on one of these alternatives later this year. In addition to advancing our coastal protection planning, the city has also taken steps to ensure that the design of buildings and infrastructure follows the best available climate science. Sandy reinforced that resilient building design can reduce our risk to severe flood events. Zoning for coastal flood resiliency, which was adopted by City Council in 2021, enables new and existing buildings to exceed minimum flood-resistant construction requirements. This will help ensure that the buildings we live in and work in can withstand flood hazards well into the future. Additionally, the design of the city's facilities and infrastructure will incorporate forward-looking climate change data through the Climate Resiliency Design Guidelines. These guidelines are being piloted on all types of city projects over the next few years to understand the design approaches that are most effective at managing coastal flooding, heavy rain, and high temperatures. The next topic area is waterfront public access. The vision for waterfront public access aims to improve and expand access to open space by continuing to address inequities in access to open space and its design, acknowledging the vital role waterfront parkland plays in coastal adaptation, and redefining what waterfront access means by advancing opportunities for on-water recreation, such as kayaking. The 4 goals for waterfront public access focus on bridging public access gaps in historically underserved and disconnected waterfront areas, promoting opportunities to get onto and into the water where appropriate, ensuring the design and programming of open spaces reflects a range of users, and promoting good stewardship of open space. Some of the projects and initiatives that would help achieve these goals include expanding New York City's waterfront greenways across all 5 boroughs, including completing the Manhattan Greenway in East Harlem, and improving conditions for pedestrians and cyclists across the Harlem River. We can also adapt design practices and the materials used to manage flooding, as well as to create better, more resilient parks, such as what the Parks Department was able to do in the reconstruction of the Rockaway Beach Boardwalk following Hurricane Sandy. The plan also recognizes the importance of using all available tools to expand waterfront open space and improve its design. Zoning updates approved as part of the Inwood Neighborhood Plan, just to the north of Community District 11, will ensure that waterfront public access at Sherman Creek by requiring new development on privately owned sites build public open space. This will help create continuous public access along the Harlem River over time. The next topic area is economic opportunity. The vision for economic opportunity is to jumpstart the green economy to sustain and create a diverse mix of jobs for New Yorkers. The goals for economic opportunity are advocating for a 21st century working waterfront, using the waterfront to diversify the city's economy and drive equitable economic recovery, connecting these investments to employment and career advancement opportunities, and promoting the use of our waterways for entertainment, hospitality, and education. Under the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, New York State aims to reach 70% renewable energy by 2030 and reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 85% by 2050, putting us on the path towards carbon neutrality. This is a big deal for New York City because our expansive waterfront setting positions us to lead the way in offshore wind for the region. The city is laying the groundwork to propel offshore wind in 3 core areas: sites and infrastructure, business and workforce development, and research and innovation. The city will develop partnerships with communities to create well-paying jobs for disadvantaged neighborhoods historically affected by climate injustice. The plan further aims to support MWBEs and other local companies in accessing the over $70 billion in economic activity that is expected to be generated by the offshore wind industry. Lastly, the plan outlines how the city can promote research and innovation in offshore wind to ensure that new technologies are developed right here in New York City. The next topic area is water quality and natural resources. The vision is for water quality to continue to improve and for natural resources to continue to be restored. The goals for water quality and natural resources are to improve water quality throughout the 5 boroughs, protect ecosystems, raise public awareness of water quality improvements and habitat protection, and use the best available data to inform decision-making about restoration efforts. Here are some examples of restoration activities that have or will restore the ecology of the harbor, promote biodiversity, and where appropriate, support recreation. The Randall's Island Living Shoreline includes terraces and tide pools that create new habitats and encourage biodiversity. The shoreline uses native plants to help extract heavy metals from the soil, and additionally, markers at different elevations of the shoreline allow visitors to observe the effects of rising sea levels firsthand. I also see the Randall's Park Alliance in the back with their blue shirts. Shout out to you, you all do great work. Other places in the city where this is happening include Alley Creek in Queens. This will also feature a living shoreline that is expected to improve water quality, restore the natural habitat, and enhance the resiliency of the marsh. All right, 2 topic areas left. The next is ferries. The plan's vision for ferries is to continue to find ways to improve ferry services and advance the role our waterways play in New York City's transportation network. To realize this vision, the city can increase the sustainability and efficiency of ferry services, complete the planned expansion of New York City Ferry to provide greater mobility to waterfront neighborhoods that are underserved by other forms of mass transit, examine ways to improve the delivery of ferry service to New Yorkers, better plan ferry services within the region, and strengthen the role ferry landings play as hubs to neighborhoods, other forms of transportation, and for emergency response. Some of the ways for the city to deliver on these goals are by launching new vessels with no or reduced air emissions and taking steps to ensure that New York City Ferry is operating as effectively and efficiently as possible. The final topic area is governance. The vision for governance calls for action across levels of government and collaboration with property owners, practitioners, and community-based organizations. Its goals are to improve the coordination, management, and monitoring of waterfront infrastructure, to develop gold star guidelines for waterfront infrastructure, and to make it easier for projects that provide ecological benefits to be permitted. The city is in the process of developing a new waterfront code to guide the design, permitting, construction, and maintenance of waterfront infrastructure. This code will ensure that there is a clear and consistent set of standards for building things like piers, docks, and seawalls. The plan also points to opportunities to promote living shorelines or other natural features along New York City's shoreline that require filling in a portion of a water body. Current regulations can encourage property owners to replace what's already at the shoreline rather than doing something more innovative. What this means is that a property owner is more likely to replace a bulkhead that provides no ecological benefit than do something more beneficial for the environment if it takes longer to permit. The Alley Creek project that I mentioned before was approved by the state, but it took several years to do so, and was only approved as a pilot. It includes detailed monitoring requirements to show how adding fill is improving the ecology of the site. But by collaborating with the state and federal regulators on this important work, the city can encourage resiliency and promote living shorelines along New York City's mostly hardened edge. I'll wrap up by talking about the next steps for the plan. The Waterfront team was incredibly excited to release the plan in December, but there's still much more work to do. We are now focusing our attention on promoting the plan by doing presentations just like this one and working within the Adams administration to advance the initiatives within the plan. This is not something we're going to do alone. The power of the plan lies in the good ideas and the supporters who will help us champion them. As we shift from planning to action, we will continue to work with our agency, organizational, and community partners to achieve the visions laid out in the plan. We hope you all will help us make that happen. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much to New York City Department of City Planning. Our next presentation is from the New York City Economic Development Corporation on planned and ongoing projects in East Harlem.
You'll advance what they have those.
Good morning. Happy Earth Day. My name's Meredith Simon Pearson, and I'm a senior project manager in the capital program at New York City Economic Development Corporation. My slides are advancing without me. I'm here today to present two of our ongoing open spaces projects along the East River and Harlem River in Community Board 11. Both of these projects EDC is implementing on behalf of the Parks Department. So first today, we're going to talk about 107th Street Pier and the East River Esplanade. This is an upcoming project that's just getting started, and again, EDC is implementing this on behalf of the Parks Department. The East River Esplanade, as it's commonly called, this portion of Esplanade is also called the Bobby Wagner Walk for New York City Mayor Wagner's son, Bobby, who was a distinguished public servant in his own right. So you'll see it called 107th Street Pier Bobby Wagner Walk further on in the presentation. So the 107th Street Pier Bobby Wagner Walk project aims to structurally repair and rehabilitate the Esplanade from 94th Street to 107th Street and 118th to 124th Street to bring it up to a state of good repair and restore public access, while also incorporating resiliency features such as elevating for long-term sustainability. Another portion of the project works to enliven the waterfront by providing a high-quality design open space with a range of community-supported uses in the 107th Street Pier. So this pier is planned to be completely demolished and rebuilt with new topside elements as a brand new open space. And the pier is currently closed to the public. It's been closed since 2018 due to structural safety concerns. The budget of the project is $294 million, with a large portion of that being city capital and a few state grants mixed in as well. The project is, we've currently selected our design consultant and we're working on finalizing their contract. The scope of the design includes building a strong, resilient Esplanade structure that absorbs the knowledge gathered from the East Harlem Resiliency study and applies it to the design in this location. There'll be modest elevation for sea level rise that will consider its impacts on inland drainage needs. The pier will also include public art, and the selection process for that artist will follow the Percent for Art process, similar to the process that was done on the Manhattan Greenway Harlem River just north of this. So a selection committee will be comprised of community members, DCLA, Parks, and EDC, and an art consultant on the selected design team will do outreach to local and regional artists to determine who the call for proposals will go out to. We are anticipating design for this project to start this spring in 2022 and construction to start in fall 2024. So just north of 107th Street Pier, Bobby Wagner Walk, is an ongoing project, Manhattan Greenway, Harlem River. This project's been presented many times over the past few years to Community Board 11, and so today I'm just going to give a refresher on the project background and the overall scope and design of the project. So, the Manhattan Greenway Harlem River is a project that's part of a larger greenway plan to close the loop around the island of Manhattan. So the area between 125th Street and 132nd Street is one of the last remaining gaps in this loop. This project will provide greater access to the waterfront, safe pedestrian and bikeways, along with parks amenities. And again, EDC is implementing this project on behalf of Parks as part of a larger project we are managing to restore structural integrity of the waterfront along almost the entirety of the east side of Manhattan of the Harlem River. The project goals for this project include providing continuous and enhanced access along Harlem River Park by completing the design for the Esplanade between 125th and 132nd Street, while also concurrently doing bulkhead reconstruction and marine infrastructure repairs from 132nd Street to 145th Street and 155th Street to Swindler's Cove. So you can see here we have in this map our 3 sub-projects identified. The southernmost is that 125th to 132nd Street area, and that's where this new 7-acre park will be located. Just north of that is sub-project 2, 132nd to 145th, where there's an existing esplanade where we'll be doing structural repairs. And similarly, from 155th to Swindler's Cove, there's an existing esplanade where we will be doing bulkhead and marine infrastructure repairs. And the budget for this project is $227 million, funded by City Capital and including a neighborhood development fund. So today we're going to focus mostly on that sub-project 1, the new park from 125th to 132nd Street. And so here's just a view of the existing condition on that site. Most likely you haven't been out to this site because it's been a construction staging area for City DOT and TBTA for many years. So you can see here in this picture, it's just dirt and there's construction equipment. So this is the view from 3rd Avenue Bridge looking north. And again, here is the view from underneath the RFK Triborough Bridge as it stands today. So this project developed from a 2018 concept plan that Parks developed. And this concept plan was developed with community input and outreach in East Harlem. Through that outreach, we heard that residents wanted a safe, accessible, and well-lit park, that users desired art and cultural opportunities, and popular active programming amenities included playgrounds, basketball courts, and outdoor fitness features, while passive recreation features that were desired included benches, game tables, and picnic areas. And shade and trees received the most votes in the vegetation category for what was desired by the community. So the result of that outreach was this 2018 concept plan for the 7-acre park along Harlem River from 125th to 132nd that you see here. So moving forward into today, the 2020 design is now being managed by EDC. We have Langen Engineering as our lead engineer, with Star Whitehouse Landscape Architects working for us as well to develop the design for this park. We're currently progressing final design details drawings, and so what you see today is how the design stands today, but it is again in progress. So here's the overall view of the park, and then we're going to go into each section so we can see what programmatic elements are there. And again, this is a work in progress, and I'll also give a plug for the Community Board's Open Spaces and Environment Committee. Our Harlem River design team will be there in May, on May 5th, to give a more in-depth presentation and detail updates on how the design has changed since they last presented. And the artist who's producing the public art piece for the park will also be there to present his updates. So starting at the southern end at 125th Street, this is the area under the RFK Bridge that we saw that existing conditions photo of. So under the bridge, there'll be a variety of fitness equipment. We'll have basketball courts, exercise areas, and then a separated bike path along the back and the esplanade along the front, and a passive lawn area. And this project is working to raise the esplanade for sea level rise. So the new esplanade elevation will be raised about 3 feet above the existing shoreline elevation, which is at about 7.5 feet, and will be up to 10.5 feet to accommodate for sea level rise. So moving north, this is the area under the Willis Avenue Bridge. So the existing Willis Ave pedestrian and bike ramp lands in this area, and you can see there are bike racks located in the design. And at this point, because of the narrowness of the park, it will become a combined bike and pedestrian area. Moving north from here, this portion of the Esplanade connects out to 127th Street, so this will be the main at-grade access point for the park. You can see plantings, and there are benches located here to just passively take in views of the river. Moving west, out towards 127th Street. This is an existing triangle that's going to be reworked as the entrance to the park. So if you've been on this triangle before, there are no walkways. It's just planted. So in the development of this project, it will include bike and pathways that lead into the park, bike racks for people to park their bikes, improved curbs and curb cuts for crossing. And we've heard from the community a large desire for a comfort station and a bathroom in this park, and so we're leaving a space in this entrance triangle to accommodate that in the future, and the Parks Department is actively working to continue pursuing funding opportunities along with the community board and electeds to try and add a comfort station to this area of the park. So back onto the Esplanade, moving north, this begins the Meadow Walk portion, which is a long, beautiful path with plantings and the raised esplanade and passive benches. A part of the design here includes hundreds of new salt and wind-tolerant trees and shrubs and native plants and adapted to New York City's harsh shoreline conditions. So we'll have hundreds of new plantings along this new Esplanade and Greenway. The Meadow Walk continues north here with similar plantings and passive bench recreation areas. And then just north of this is what we're calling the Harlem Grove area. This is, again, when the Esplanade gets wider, we have a separated bike path along the back of the site and the Esplanade along the water. We have a large passive lawn area here, and this is the site of a new public art piece as well. And so here you can see some renderings of what that art piece will be. It's an original organ piece designed by Edo Adegibi. The piece will both create a moment for observation as well as an interactive production of sound. And then at the very north end of the site at 132nd Street, we've maintained our separated bike path and pedestrian path and added a playground as well as a barbecue area, which has been expanded after community input. It's now 2,700 square feet and includes 6 barbecue grills. There's also a fish cleaning station. And we had a great design opportunity to incorporate this cove that you see on the left here. And this creates additional open water and intertidal habitat as required by the New York State Department of Environmental Protection. So this added feature of the cove arose from a need to reach a net zero cut fill on the project in order to meet that New York State DEC mitigation requirement. So even for basic bulkhead reconstruction work where we're doing structural fill, we needed to get creative on finding solutions to meet the DEC requirements. And this presented a design opportunity to create a new moment within the park for expanded views of the water by creating this beautiful cove. So in summary, for Manhattan Greenway Harlem River, we're currently progressing final detailed design drawings. There'll be a new 7-acre park from 125th to 132nd Street, and then north of that, from 132nd to 145th and 155th to Swindler's Cove, there'll be structural repairs and reconstruction of bulkheads, making them stronger and more resilient. We're expecting final design mid this year and construction to start in late 2022. Thank you. Jessica's on her way.
So we can do questions at the end, but for now, think about your questions and or comments. If you have any input on the things that you're seeing, we'll pass around a microphone at the end. Up next, we have Department of Parks and Recreation. Welcome, Steve Simon and your team. Thank you so much.
Ricardo, Jana, could you come up? Are Ricardo and Jana here? Is Michelle Palmer here? Oh, that's it. Oh, great. All right, so maybe half of us are here. 2/3. All right. All right, keep those fingers handy. All right. Well, first of all, I want to back up the presentation just made by EDC. And I don't know whether people understand how significant the addition will be, the capture that we're making of the waterfront property between 125th Street and 132nd Street, and the opportunity it provides us to expand parkland in East Harlem. It's a very significant addition to our portfolio, and the Parks Department is really looking forward to the opportunity to have what is going to be a magnificent park. We're thankful to EDC for taking the reins and helping us with the construction, but it should be also clear that the Parks Department has been integrally involved in this process all along, and have also helped to shape the design, since we're going to have to maintain the property. But this is, we're as many of you know, over a period of time, we've added to our properties along the river in the Harlem River Park, a little bit further north between 132nd and 144th Street or so, in two phases. And so this is yet another phase in which we've expanded parkland right along the Harlem River. And this is one of the more significant additions of that we've had in a long time. So thank you to EDC, and thank you to CB11 for pushing us in that direction. And so let me say we have a very thorough presentation to make. I understand that it may be difficult to follow and pick up on all of the slides. The presentation, I understand, will be posted on the CB11 website, so you can look at it at your leisure afterwards. And certainly if you have any questions, you should feel free to contact us. So here we are, we're batting cleanup. I feel good about that. I think we're going to bring it all home. And the byword today, as I understand from Jessica, is equity. And the Parks Department has been engaged in a major initiative over the last 8 or so years, a Parks Equity Initiative, referred to as Community Parks Initiative, CPI. And CPI has had a real impact in the East Harlem neighborhood. We've had, thank you, we've had 4 parks that have been rebuilt or are in the process of being rebuilt as part of that initiative, which is specifically targeted at communities such as East Harlem, which have had an underinvestment in parks funding over the years. And Ricardo will go through that in greater detail. So let me now introduce our Director of Resiliency, the wonderful Alda Chan, who will take you through the next portion of our presentation.
Great. Thank you, Steve. My name is Alda. I'm in the Planning Division of New York City Parks. I think really quickly I wanted to touch on what this diagram shows. We mapped out the upcoming and recently completed waterfront projects, which are the arrows along the waterfront, as well as recently completed and in-progress projects. The pink shows completed capital projects, the orange shows in-progress projects, and then we've starred the Community Parks Initiative projects, which Steve mentioned are our centerpiece equity projects that Ricardo will go into a little more detail. In the planning division, we do a lot of work thinking about the long-term future of our open spaces and parks. One of the things that we think a lot about is climate change and resiliency. As my colleagues from the mayor's office and Jessica had mentioned previously, in 2019, we partnered with the mayor's office to do a vision plan for a resilient East Harlem. Part of that vision plan process was looking at the future climate risks of the neighborhood. We mapped and analyzed what those future climate risks would look like within the neighborhood. And as Jessica mentioned, what we saw was a lot of flood risk, both from coastal storms and sea level rise, as well as from rain events, so water coming from the sky. And a lot of that has to do with the nature of the waterways and the wetlands that used to be in this neighborhood. And so that's something that we took into account along with community input as we put together this vision plan. The vision plan includes 3 main recommendations. The first is that we really need to manage the stormwater that will collect in the low-lying areas within the neighborhood. The second is that we really need to adapt and elevate the waterfront. And the third is that we need to be thinking about how to create resilient public spaces. As a Parks Department, we think up a lot about how our playgrounds and parks can play this role. If you want a little more information, we're not going to go through all of it today. You can check out the plan online. It's nyc.gov/parks/EHR study. But really quickly, some of the things that came out of that plan, that recommendation were, as we mentioned, the need to manage stormwater, really looking at a range of both green and gray infrastructure improvements in all types of sites, given the level of risks that we're seeing in the future. So some of that is stormwater retention, some of that is larger conveyance and storage. And as Jordan mentioned previously, one of the direct outcomes of this study is that the city was able to focus and seek funding to first study and now implement a cloudburst or extreme rain project within the NYCHA Clinton houses. This isn't parkland, but I think this is something that we're really looking forward to as something that could be potentially implemented in future parks. It's also a moment to plug our Community Parks Initiative program, of which there are 3 completed sites in East Harlem and 2 that are currently in design. This is really a way in which we are transforming park spaces that may have a lot of blacktop, are not very absorbent to rain, and that may be a little hotter because of materials, and making sure that we partner with the Department of Environmental Protection to include rainwater absorption. So Playground 103, which Ricardo will show some more pictures of later, is one where we are able to capture 1.7 million gallons of stormwater. We're also using materials that make it a little cooler, and making it a place where people of all ages can come and enjoy a cool spot in the summer and in all seasons. From a waterfront perspective, the study also looked at the elevations of the waterfront Esplanade, and one of the things that we recommended was really looking at the waterfront elevations as we improve and restore our waterfront esplanades. And this is something that, as folks before me mentioned, is really informing how we're designing our future waterfront open spaces. So as Meredith talked about, the future Harlem River Greenway, particularly the segment between 125th to 132nd Street, which is that new 7-acre park. We are incorporating elevations there to think about, to accommodate sea level rise and some future storms. And it's also going to inform the 107th Street Pier and East River Esplanade Phase 4 project, which Meredith spoke about, but my colleague Mary here will also touch on briefly.
Hello everybody, I'm Mary Ely from Parks Planning. I'll be working on the reconstruction of Pier 107 Bobby Wagner Walk along with Meredith at EDC, who you heard from earlier. As Meredith mentioned, the project includes a few components, including to repair and rehabilitate the East River Esplanade, incorporate long-term resiliency goals such as managing sea level rise, design and reconstruct Pier 107, and improve the waterfront with pier amenities and public art. The budget for this project is $294 million, and that includes some city money and state grant money as well. As for the timeline, design is expected to start this spring once a design consultant is finalized, and construction is expected to start in the fall of 2024. Passing it back to Alda, who will cover ERE phases 1 and 2. Thank you.
Great. So just wrapping up our waterfront updates, I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention the work that Parks is doing to rehabilitate the East River Esplanade and plant and build it for future risks. So we have recently completed the first phase of the East River Esplanade. That was a segment from 88th to 90th Street and 124th to 125th Street. That was completed last year. And we are also currently working on the permits for the second phase of the East River Esplanade. That's 114th Street to 117th Street. I think for folks who have been following this project, the update is that we've been waiting on permits from the Army Corps of Engineers for about a year now. So unfortunately, there have been delays, but we are looking forward to being able to implement this project once we get those permits in hand. It will reconstruct the waterfront, include more resilient materials, new seating, new plantings, and we're hoping that we get those permits soon. I'm going to pass this to Ricardo, who is our Deputy Director of Landscape Architecture or Design, to talk about our capital projects.
Thank you, Alda. Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Ricardo Hinckel. I am Deputy Director of Landscape Architecture for the Manhattan team at Parks. I've been at Parks for 28 years. And I'm going to describe 9 community board, 11 playgrounds, and the sustainability strategies that we have used. We can start, hold on. Some of our most basic strategies that are repeated in all of our projects include heat mitigation, which can mean anything from planting more trees or preserving existing trees, because there's nothing better to cut the heat than a good shade tree. And what we call light-colored, high albedo pavements. And lighter-colored pavements, it turns out, reflect more sun and don't absorb the heat as much, so they tend to be cooler. We also manage stormwater in our parks, and stormwater management usually means retaining water or detaining water on site, either in a vault underneath a play area or in plant beds or rain gardens. And by cutting down on the amount of stormwater that actually goes into the storm sewer system, we cut down on the amount of pollution that goes into the rivers, because during heavy rain events, if stormwater replaces sanitary water going into the rivers and estuaries, that causes a lot of water pollution. We also are protecting our shorelines from sea level rise and also from the wave action. And again, tree preservation. And I call tree preservation sort of the golden trinity of sustainability and resilience, because you get the heat mitigation, you cut down on the heat, you have a lot of stormwater percolation, a lot of stormwater storage, and what was the last one? And it absorbs carbon. So that's why we call it the Holy Trinity. It does a lot of work for us. I just made the Holy Trinity thing up, but as a rhetorical device. The first playground we're going to visit is James Weldon Johnson. It's around 114th and 115th Street in Lexington Avenue. And one of the major features, sustainability features, was a stormwater retention system under the basketball court. And that's that big orange square you see kind of on the right side of the playground. Other sustainability features include porous asphalt. It's kind of asphalt where there's enough pores that stormwater can percolate like a sponge, and it's very effective. And we're doing that under all of the safety surface and all of the play areas. In addition, we're doing regular rain gardens. There's a difference between a plant bed and a rain garden. A rain garden is usually depressed so the water can collect, and we get more runoff retention that way. This is a picture of the playground showing the colorful play equipment. This is on Lexington Avenue. It's been very successful. This is the stormwater collection or detention system that's going under the basketball court. If you didn't know it was there, there's no way you would know. Here's just a typical rain garden. Oops, sorry. And this is the placement of the permeable or porous asphalt. As you can see, there are a lot of pores and nooks and crannies within the asphalt that the water can percolate in very easily. Our second project is Abraham Lincoln Playground. It's at the corner of 135th and 5th Avenue, and it recently was completed. We had a ribbon cutting, I think it was last October, and it's been very popular. Some of the sustainability features, site work include, again, the protection of trees, existing shade trees, because there are a lot of shade trees on this site. We used light-colored pavements in the plaza areas with the high albedo that reflects the sun. And then in the building, there's a comfort station, and the comfort station has insulated walls, insulated windows, low energy use dryers, and low water and energy use toilets and sinks. This is a picture of the very fun and interactive, I don't know if you've seen it, the spray shower. It's got a lot of phases, it's got a lot of things to do. You can push things and control the flow of water. This is as seen off of 135th Street. This is a picture showing, we have, in a lot of our benches at parks, we've stopped using wood, we're now using recycled plastic lumber. It's not only more durable, but it's a reclaiming use of recycled plastic. The next playground is Playground 103, and that's about 103rd Street and the FDR. And one of the features of Playground 103 is that it's a very low-lying playground. And during Hurricane Sandy, it was inundated with several feet of water. So one of the things we were proposing to do was create a lot of percolation place for the water. It was a very heavily paved playground, and we've made a lot of plant beds, rain gardens, and the like to help store water during heavy storm events. There were also a lot of trees that we protected. Here's a picture of the park. And here's another picture of the park. Here's a picture of showing a lot of the extensive planting that we included in this park to make it greener and to percolate the stormwater more effectively. This shows that it used to be only 3% impervious, which is very low, and we bumped impervious. Oh, permeable. I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. 3% permeable, and now it is 48, which is a huge, huge jump. 48%. That's a 16-fold increase. Here's a picture of a rain garden, and the next park is White Park. White Park is located between 105th and 106th, between Lexington and 3rd Avenue, I believe. And the resiliency features at White Park include preservation of the large existing trees. You can see there are a lot of large trees, planting of new trees as well, and then the use of light-colored pavements that are cooler than the darker colors. Here's a picture of White Park showing the colorful play equipment and safety surface. And here's a picture showing the permeable pavers and the light color. And you can see the crevices, the joints between the pavers have a lot of space, and there's a lot of storage underneath for the stormwater.
The bunting is not always there.
The bunting, I think that was a ribbon cutting. The next park is it's Thomas Jefferson Playground, which is within the bigger Thomas Jefferson Park along 1st Avenue, and this is just south of 114th Street. And the sustainability features here are the preservation of the existing trees and the incorporation of 3 rain gardens, including one in the middle of the oval. And the oval shape actually was inspired by the location of the trees so that we would avoid impacting the trees as best as possible. Here's a picture of Thomas Jefferson Playground. The landscape architect wanted to use colors that would evoke the London plane trees in the spring. So there's the light-colored kind of arch structures that was supposed to look like the lighter color of the London plane tree bark, which is very distinctive. And here's another photograph showing the rain garden in the middle. And when we have rain gardens next to play areas, we have to put notched curbs so the water can percolate, can flow into the rain gardens from on top, but it can also flow underneath the safety surface, between the safety surface and the asphalt subgrade. And then this is another project. This is Randall's Island, let's see. Randall's Island living shoreline was built for flood resilience, sea level rise, and phytoremediation to clean contaminated soil. And I think you heard a little bit about phytoremediation. That's when the plant processes the heavy metals and the other contaminants in the soil and brings it into the plant, the actual plant material, but takes it out of the soil. So you have to dispose of the plant, but your soil has cleaned. And that's one strategy for cleaning contaminated sites. At Randall's Island, we took an existing shoreline and we cut it down a little bit, and we made it a little bit, a little more natural, a little more eco-friendly. These are fascines or cuttings of native plants like willow and the like that are put in the soil, and then they tend to thrive and they hold the soil in place, and they create an erosion and wave-resistant shoreline edge. Not a very heavy wave, but light waves. And then there's the coastal edge would be planted with native shrubs that would have the opportunity to adjust and migrate as the sea level rose. This is Port Richards Playground. This is at, 3rd Avenue and 108th Street. This is another playground where there are a lot of existing trees, and we've done everything we can to preserve the trees and to keep them healthy. One of the things we do a lot at Parks, and we've really perfected and worked towards having tree planting or tree protection strategies that will make sure that our large trees don't die a few years after construction, because we've been finding that larger trees, if there's too much impact too close to the critical roots, they might not die the first year, but in a few years they'll start to flag. So we're trying to keep those trees as long as possible. There's also rain gardens at Port Richards Playground. This is PS 155 Playground. This is another project with rain gardens, tree protection, and more tree plantings. Yes. This is actually in procurement. It's not even under construction. And it's at 118th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenues. One feature of Playground 155 is that, or PS 155 Playground, is that this is another example where we took only 2% permeable site and brought it up to 16% permeable. It's not like the other one that was 48%, but it's a 8-fold jump, which is very good. And then the last and final site is Detective Omar Edwards Park at 124th between 2nd and 3rd Avenues. And this is still in design, so there's not much that has been finalized. But one of the things that the landscape architect is proposing to do is a pollinator garden for bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds, as well as rain gardens. So there's a picture of that. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Let me just say that, and I think you've just seen proof of it, Ricardo and his colleagues in our Capital Division have done an amazing job with their designs for upgrading these playgrounds, even setting aside all of the environmental benefits. The more interesting and challenging play equipment and designs that they have come up with for the children of this community, I think, are just amazing. They've done a very good job. And let me also point out one other feature of the design process that we follow in the Parks Department, and we take great pride in this, is that we show respect to the community by starting the design process by first holding what we call a community input meeting. And we solicit the ideas of the people and the local residents who utilize those parks and playgrounds before we even start any work at all. And we try to incorporate as many of the ideas that people suggest to us, because we want to make sure that the ultimate result of the design and the new renovated park and playground is something that the people in the community want and will actually enjoy. So this is something that at Parks we are especially proud of, that we've built this right into our design process. Let me now introduce to you our senior tree planting forester. Oh, 1 second. Did I promote you? Are you senior? Okay. Well, as of today, she is our senior tree planting forester, Michelle Palmer.
Hi, everyone. My name's Misha. I'm a street tree planting forester. That's okay. And I'm going to be talking to you about trees, and specifically tree planting here in East Harlem. So I'm going to briefly cover why trees, kind of go back to the basics, look at our street tree planting initiatives, past and present, and looking at stewardship and how you can get involved. So first of all, trees are one of the simplest strategies that we can employ to improve our resiliency and our quality of life as New Yorkers. Trees increase in value over time. A small street tree planted today will only increase in value as it gets larger, providing more and more services to the community. This before and after photo was taken just up the road here in Manhattan. You can put yourself in the photo for a minute. On the left, before trees were planted, and then on the right, after trees were planted. You can really feel the difference, right? It's cooler, you feel calmer, and more healthy. And this is a basic right that all New Yorkers deserve, now more than ever. So this is why, for the past decade, we've shifted our priorities looking at street tree planting through an equity lens. We're looking at those neighborhoods in New York where they're most needed, East Harlem being at the top of that list. We've been working with the Department of Public Health and the Mayor's Office to do this, starting with the Million Trees New York initiative and Cool Neighborhoods, which is what we use today. We look at the heat vulnerability index and that data through the lens of racial, economic, and environmental justice to choose where our funding is going and where those trees are being planted. As a result, over 1,000 trees have been planted in Community Board 11, with more to come. Yeah. But planting trees is nothing if they don't last and live into maturity, right? So this is where you come in. Our stewardship team is always looking for volunteers here in East Harlem to help take care of those young street trees. The best way to get involved is to go to our website, or if you have a group who would like to do tree care, you can contact our outreach supervisor, Maria Amim, directly at this email address. And if you would like a specific tree in your neighborhood, maybe you have a place in front of your apartment or down the street, simply call 311 or use the 311 app. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mish. Mish? Okay, good. All right. Now I want to introduce our historic Harlem Parks administrator. She's not historic. The parks are historic, but she's very good. She's really very good. Jana Lasorte.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for this day. It's really meaningful to be here on Earth Day and to CB11 and to Jessica and the whole team. I attend the Parks Committee meetings each first Thursday of the month, and it's truly a delight to meet a lot of the leaders who I've only seen on Zoom, to meet them in person today. So thank you. I'm Gianna, and as Michelle said, one of the things that we spend a lot of time at with our team in Historic Harlem Parks is thinking about volunteers and how we can build more greening in the park and more opportunities for community members to be part of that greening. So one of the things that we've created is what we call Harlem Hort, and it's the cute little nickname for Harlem Horticulture. Harlem Hort is a horticultural initiative that basically supplements the gardening work of the one gardener that we have in each of the 4 large historic Harlem parks. Those parks are Marcus Garvey, right here in East Harlem, Morningside Park, Jackie Robinson, and St. Nicholas. All of those parks, as you probably know, are quite large, one gardener. So Harlem Hort, we decided we had some extra resources, and we created this horticultural project that could supplement that gardener and really help bring design elements to certain designated zones in the park. We work with the local friends groups at each park. We launched this at St. Nicholas Park, and it's coming to Marcus Garvey. The idea is that we involve the friends group and volunteers so that we can collaborate and we can build the volunteering around the parks and really help hear from you what you guys want, how you can be involved in the planting, and really helping us identify the zones that can make the most impact as we move year to year to keep growing that impact. Okay, did I do that right? Yes, okay. So what we're building at Marcus Garvey is really exciting. So as we got this initiative underway, Eric, our wonderful gardener at Marcus Garvey Park, he and I thought about this opportunity to have plants growing as part of Harlem Hort. And working with our chiefs and other partners on our team, we decided to try the closed end of the Marcus Garvey pool. So that east end of the pool, some of you may know, is a sand-pitted area, and we're going right now to work with that area to make it into a nursery. We actually just got the greenhouse. We're very excited. That's going to be going in next week. And Eric and our team will be growing our plants there that can be part of Harlem Hort for all 4 parks, but also really elevate what Eric is able to do for Marcus Garvey Park. 2, as we build out that space and get it finished, that will turn into a public programming space where we can offer to the community and Harlem gardening workshops. We can offer talks on gardening books, horticultural design, lectures, demonstrations, essentially becoming a resource in Harlem for all public horticultural learning and active doing. Also, our pool, we're working on a space in the pool that has been out of use for some time, the concession area on the west side of the pool, to turn that into the volunteer station, what we're calling right now the plant. And people would be able to come up and see the schedule at the plant and sign up for volunteering and receive the tools and anything you need for the day. So we're really excited about this. We're working on the build out right now. We're planning for after pool season to have the launch opening and to invite you to horticultural events at the Harlem Hort HQ. Thank you.
I need your finger. Oh, no, I could figure it out. Okay, so we're down to the last 2 or 3 slides, so thank you for bearing with us. We could do an entire presentation just on our Green Roofs program, which is really very exciting. But unfortunately, the guy who's in charge of it is on leave and out of the country, so it's going to fall to me. So we started this program in the CB11 area back in 2007. We installed our first roof, green roof, atop what we called back then the 5-borough complex on Randall's Island. This roof encompasses over 30 unique growing systems covering 30,000 square feet of roof and is one of the largest green roofs in New York City. So this is the only known green roof in the country to feature distinct systems side by side with systems varying by type of growing medium, depth of growing medium, and plant selection. This helps us identify the types of systems that will thrive in the New York City urban environment. This green roof is a key component of Park's commitment to reducing its carbon footprint and also serves as a resource for best practices and management and a way to educate and inspire Park staff and patrons. So we did not stop at this green roof. We have since created 32 other green roofs on our properties throughout the city. Over the last 15 years, and we will be adding more green roofs, 50,000 square feet, in fact, for a total of 250,000 square feet in the near future. One of the roofs that we will be adding will also be in East Harlem at the Thomas Jefferson Recreation Center. We expect to have that done in the next, within the next 5 years. So every inch of rain produces 26,250 gallons, so I'm told. And this particular roof on Randall's Island, we estimate has been capturing approximately 1.3 million gallons of rain per year, diverting all of that storm water from the New York City sewer system. So we have been saving millions of gallons annually through our Green Roofs program. So I think we have every reason to be proud of it. So, Jessica, I hope we've done a good enough job so that you will invite us back next year.